It's a beautiful day to talk about video games with the Door Raptor and Luke. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing pretty well. It's for me, July is always a time where I kind of try and work less, chill out a bit more because not a lot of stuff is happening anyways. So I'll actually be traveling again tomorrow, going to Budapest with some friends. So I'm very excited to that. But that's the final trip for now, with maybe Gamescom in August, of course. But yeah, excited for that, but also excited to get into full weeks again because now, which has been nice, but it has been a crazy July for whatever reason. I don't know what's in the air, but it has been crazy. So I'm now working 3 days a week basically, but I have to do what feels like everything for 5 days. So the times that I am home, I'm like, working quite a lot, but it's always nice to do some fun stuff. So I should not complain actually because I'm also traveling quite a lot. But hey, you asked how I'm doing, and that is the answer. So how about you, man? How about you?
I'm doing good, living the dream. I'm trying to think. I don't have that many cool things going on. I don't have any like super exciting trips or anything. I'm trying to think of something I could say. Oh, we're gonna go on like a little trip here in like a week for a few days, just like a long weekend. So we'll do that. Just for like 3 days, I think it is. So it won't really interfere with anything. But yeah, I mean, it normally July is just dead. Like I remember last year, there was just literally nothing. Like July was just, it's sort of surreal. Like June, crazy amounts of stuff. July, absolutely nothing to talk about. This time around, we've got some live service stuff. We got Concord. We've got some Suicide Squad stuff. We've got Assassin's Creed stuff moving that we'll talk about today. Of course, we have, the rev up to Star Wars Outlaws, and we've got some other stuff that's happening, but normally it's way more boring than this. So it's been good, but also we've been taking it slowly and enjoying it.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Yeah. And you're, of course, like sad that the open beta for Concord is over. Now you have to wait a month.
I know. What else am I going to play now?
Yeah.
No, I will say, Jor, at last week on the podcast, you were saying how you had a gut feeling they were going to delay it and try to rework stuff. They just posted on Twitter a series. They did all that. It seems like they're doubling down on it. They're going to put it out. And after playing it and seeing those player numbers, I was with you. I was like, this will not work. You cannot have a live service game with 1,200 people on PC during the free access. But
I still think it's still a month. This feels a little too soon to drop after the beta. I do think it's like Wednesday now when we record this. Of course, they ended the beta, I think, on Monday or like late on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're now looking at the stats. I do think there are some alarm bells like going off at Sony right now. And like we can, you made a nice segue. So let's just quickly touch on it. Because of course you're talking about the sort of things they said how they're gonna have a lot of post-launch stuff. That will keep the game fresh. Did you also like see in the beta that when one of those new cinematics would play, it still had like a placeholder name?
It was like final _2.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of other things that just frankly are missing that should be in a game like this. Most notably is one they actually reference in these posts, because for those of you listening on Spotify who no doubt have given us a 5 out of 5 star review, they posted a series of little pictures with sort of Q&A stuff on it instead of just posting a wall of text, which is fine. But one of the questions they answer is, will the game at launch have a leaver penalty system, which basically just means if somebody leaves a match in the middle of it or right before it starts, whatever, will there be a penalty for that? Because right now there isn't. Through the betas, if you left your team was just down 4v5 and there's no dynamic fill, so you're just screwed if somebody leaves and there's no punishment for it. And they say, well, we are exploring a variety of methods, including lever penalty systems, to incentivize players to start and stay in complete teams. Stay tuned for more updates. So apparently, like, it wasn't that they just had it turned off during the betas. They just didn't develop one. They just don't have one. And there's little stuff like that all over the game where you're just like, this is kind of 101. Like, the core gameplay is fun, but there's some quality of life things that are just painfully absent. And maybe they can throw it together by the time the game launches, but I'm just surprised at how they kind of acknowledge that stuff's missing in these posts, and they're just like, yep, but we'll see you in August.
Yeah, it's because you also touched on the player numbers. So for people who are unaware, of course, this is Sony's second big live service game that they're gonna drop $40, and they had a free weekend, so everyone who owned a PS5 or PC could play this game for free. I say people say here in the chat, thanks everyone for joining, of course, that the beta was fun, and again, it's fun, but looking at the numbers, like, fun is simply not good enough anymore. So they had a peak of 2,388 people on Steam during this open beta. And if we compare this to Marvel Rivals, that has a closed beta going on right now, so only if you got an invite you could play this, it had 50,000.
Yeah.
Or like 52,000 peak concurrent. And again, that's a closed beta. That's crazy. That game is also gonna be free, so there will be way more people checking it out. While Concord, I really think Concord is gonna sell a few thousand copies, because even if when it's free, only a few thousand people play it, I don't see how there will be more people buying it at launch. That's not how it works.
Exactly.
So, but
well, it's just like there are some things that are just a matter of fact. Like, it's not even open for debate. What we know is when the game was free, it peaked at just under 2,400 players. And as a result, matchmaking times were excruciating. They ranged from like 4 minutes to 10 minutes. We were on stream live and I tried to matchmake and it timed out. It couldn't find enough players. During the free open beta, it timed out and couldn't find a match. That's ridiculous. That's bad. When you look at Marvel Rivals, on the other hand, one of my I played it with a bunch of friends last night. One of the main complaints was matchmaking time was so fast we couldn't watch the highlights for like the MVP of each match. I had to intentionally not press the re-queue button, because if I pressed it, we would be in a match before the clip had even loaded of the play of the game. Like, it's a very good problem to have because there's so many people interested. The matches are fast enough that there's always a pool of people cycling through to the next match. And that's what you need. You need that excitement. You need that energy. And the one thing with live service games is they are much more sensitive to like peer pressure and to those outside factors related to social media. Because if people feel that this game is a sinking ship and is not going to be talked about in a week or 2 weeks or a month, they're just not going to bother getting committed. Whereas something like Hellblade, it's like, yeah, this game is not going to be talked about in 2 weeks, but I'll still play it because it doesn't really matter. It's a single player game. Who cares? But with this, if your friends don't want to play it with you, if there's not random people queuing in, and like the matchmaking's so long, people are just going to give up and go somewhere else. And then you stack on top of that the $40 albatross that's around its neck. Like, even free, I still don't think this holds a candle to the offerings that are in Marvel Rivals day one. And so $40, yeah, I don't think this is it.
Yeah, and it's not even for me. It also, because again, I can totally see the potential here in that I did like some player or like some characters they had some pretty unique features. There were some annoying things though, like when you select a character, you always hear their sort of small quote. every time you die and reselect that character, which is kind of annoying, but that's like a small thing. I think overall the gameplay is pretty solid. I'm just like, why are we playing? Like, I said it, I think, last week as well, but the sort of disconnect between watching these characters chill on their ship and be like, whoa, that's a weird clan name. And then a few minutes later, you're killing each other. I just still don't get it. Like,
Yeah.
why are we friendly and then we shoot each other in the face?
Well, it screams of the same thing where it's like designed by executive committee, where you can tell like somebody in the boardroom said, well, guys, this survey we did shows most PlayStation players are most excited by single player games and games with compelling stories. And so an executive was like, well, what if you just put a compelling story and cutscenes into the live service game? Then single player players will jump into this game and spend lots of money. And it's just like, it doesn't take a genius to realize that's not going to work. Anybody who plays games will tell you, no, single player games are not going to play a 5v5 hero shooter because there's a weekly cutscene that's like 90 seconds long. That it just won't do it. And the 5v5 hero shooter players, they don't really care about that stuff usually. Sometimes, you know, there's people that read the comics for Overwatch, and there is a community for that, but it's certainly a niche. And so it just feels like an idea that was put out by somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about, and then they decided to double down on it and triple down on it, and now that's supposedly one of the big selling points of the game.
I mean, it would be cool in a game like Overwatch where people actually care about the characters. So I do think it's still an interesting idea, but it's like that should be one of the, like, investing in interesting modes or more like interesting rewards. I mean, I leveled up a few times and I got a weapon skin for a character I never used, and it was just normally the weapon is green and now it's red. The other rewards were a profile picture and a background for my profile. So of course every game has sort of like this profile card, and those were like the first rewards I got. Now they're coming out saying there's no battle pass. People are celebrating that, but I'm like, okay, so are the rewards that we got during the beta, like, that progression is all they have?
Yeah,
that's not good. So it just, you do see, like, the graphics are great. I do think you could argue it is a well-made game in the core sense, but everything around it is just, like, it's not even that people just don't care about the franchise or the IP to begin with. There's also no reason to care yet, because this game doesn't give you anything that you can't get elsewhere. And that's, I think, the biggest problem. And launching it like this, it's not gonna work. Or even if they keep adding content to it, because probably they, like Sony learned with Helldivers, we see that as well. They are dropping a huge update in 2 weeks. Like, they had a ton of, like, they had a big plan when they were launching. For Concord, that's probably the same as well. But it's a new free runner, a new character that, like, nobody cares about the other character. Like, why would a new character be exciting? Or I don't know. It's weird. I still think they're gonna delay it even with this post. People are also in the freaking, like, all the comments are like, delay it, and I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's gonna help. Like we saw it with Suicide Squad as well. It's, if you really make a game that nobody cares about to begin with, you can try and turn it into something. But if the interest is not there to begin with, why even bother?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think maybe you could compare it, like, there's people that point out that the game's fundamental, like, the core of it's good. The hit detection's great, the gun plays solid, guns feel different, movement's pretty solid, stuff like that. And nobody's doubting that the team, mainly of Bungie devs, know what they're doing. Like, everybody agrees, yeah, they know what they're doing. But this is almost like having a really powerful and amazingly well-designed engine within the body of, like, a 1987 Honda Civic. I don't even know if they made Honda Civics back in 1987, but, like, all rusted out, it's falling apart. It's an amazing engine, that's great, but it doesn't really matter because it's in a wrapper and a container that can't hold it up, can't support it, can't sustain it, and so nobody's gonna buy the damn thing. It's I just don't think it works unless you have the support system and the other stuff to hold it up. Otherwise, it's just a really flashy thing that you can appreciate if you lift the hood. But when you actually get down to it, it just doesn't really... It's not a good product. Like the car itself isn't going to be worth the asking price if the two pieces of it don't work together. And the big thing is just with Concord, the core could be good, but live service games are not just about
good.
that. Yeah. But like the core is bad. Yeah, exactly. The support system around it, the rewards, the lack of like a really robust ranked system, the lack of quality of life features like, you know, leaving punishments and dynamic fills and stuff like that. Those things are all baffling.
Yeah. And one thing I want to I also think that these games still have not really nailed. I mean, like it's really like they have to find a solution for the fact that if I don't play one character, why am I getting rewards for that character that are not that exciting? I want to get rewards for the few characters I play. So it's kind of wild with a game like this where I can see, okay, I'm not getting any rewards for the next 20 levels for the characters I actually play.
Apex does the same thing. And like, it drives me crazy because you'll main like, Gibraltar, you know, Jibby, you'll main him. And then you get a skin for him or a weapon or something that he can use once every like 50 matches. And most of the time they're common, you know, level skins. And so it's just, okay, not bothering with that. And I understand why they do that. You know, some people say, oh, well, they're doing it because they want to encourage you to try other characters. Okay, whatever. Like, I don't want to. I have characters I like and characters I don't like. Like, I don't care. And then others will say, well, no, it's because it's meant to make sure that you don't run out of rewards to get so fast because you've mained this one character, unlocked everything for them. And to that, I would just say, like, if you have so few rewards for characters that you're worried about running out within a reasonable amount of time, like that's a problem. Even with like the Apex example, Gibraltar has like a crazy number of skins available to him by himself. Just let me unlock those. But it's all just one of these things. It kind of leans into the gambling side of it, where it's like, okay, this match I didn't get a skin I wanted or can use, but maybe next match I can. So let me play another.
Yeah, there are 16 characters and I only like 2. So high chance. I mean, it's wild. I think that like because you also level up your character, so they should like get rewards for that. And what the crazy part is, and I think they're gonna be in, you would think, right? Like, we have not even seen the microtransactions in this game. Like, they're gonna be microtransactions.
Mm-hmm.
That's not gonna go over well.
Yeah, $40 with microtransactions. It's just...
And then, like I really think they're gonna, because they're giving away all the free post-launch stuff, which basically means, hey, we're gonna give you, outfits or something you can buy. So, high chance that the cool quote-unquote rewards that they're giving you for playing are not even the coolest because those are bought in the store. I think it's gonna be I don't think it's gonna be interesting if they launch it, because then we all know. I still think that in the next few podcasts we will hear about an update, and then I think we should talk more about it, because we actually have some more interesting stuff, I would argue, to go over.
So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Because I agree.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be another couple of bridges before this game eventually launches, unless they just want to throw it to the wolves. But with that said...
100%. And you, by the way, said about the reviews, and I mean, there are 5 legends listening, watching right now that gave us that 5-star review. So we appreciate you a lot. If you don't know what we're talking about, so on Spotify, you can go to our page. I think you have to be on mobile. And then go to the Free Roam podcast. Of course, the name of the show. Give us the 5 stars, and then we can see that number go up, and maybe one day return to the 5 stars, because we're still at the 4.9. But yeah, one day we will probably return, and we need your help for that. So thanks a lot. To my surprise, last week, Luke, Ubisoft had their investor call. I normally am like, I got this I put it in my calendar normally. I'm the crazy person. But this
you're
time
the guy. Yeah, you're that guy that does that. Yeah.
But now I was caught off guard. I was like, what am I gonna do in my weekly news roundup video? And then, boom, Ubisoft was like, we got you. We got you. So they posted their financials. I mean, they're doing well, but they're comparing it to last year. And yeah, there was not a lot happening last year. Of course, like X Defiant doing pretty good, but they are acknowledging that probably the launch was really good and it's kind of fizzling out. But yeah, they're gonna build on that, and yeah, they really think that for live service games, you gotta listen to the community. And Ubisoft, I mean, you can say what you want about their games, but they usually do support these games for a long time and do listen and implement things that people actually want. So there are a few interesting things about the two big games that they got coming in this financial year, which of course ends on April 1st, 2025. And then we got two, I think, interesting quotes from the Ubisoft CEO that I'm curious to hear your take on as well. So let's start with Star Wars Outlaws. It's going to be the biggest marketing campaign ever for a Ubisoft game. They probably got some Disney dollars as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that's pretty sick. They think that, like, what they say is like, because the investors are like, how are the pre-orders doing, blah, blah, blah. I think the pre-orders are fine, maybe not, like, probably better than Avatar, but not as good as like an Assassin's Creed game. But they say, hey, we think, and what we see with Star Wars games in general, these sell well over time, and they also think that the Christmas season will really help sell this Star Wars game. And yeah, of course, Ubisoft games, you can probably get the game half off if you wait till December, if you have the patience and don't want to play on August 30th is when it comes out, so 27th is the early access. They also said that they held an in-person preview event for press and content creators with extended hands-on gameplay, showcasing the open world across multiple planets. This, combined with virtual previews we're holding currently, makes it the biggest preview event for press and content creators they did ever. And they are saying that we should expect these previews at the end of this month. Now, I can say that I have played this preview, but I can't say much more. But yeah, look forward to impressions here, of course, on the podcast and on both our channels, I would imagine.
Yes, I would imagine. This is one of my favorite things. Like, people will come in to chat and they'll be like, so did you guys happen to play this secret thing? And if we're under NDA and the answer is, let's say hypothetically, yes, we would say no comment, but maybe.
Have you ever considered maybe doing like a sort of inside thing with your community where you say something random, like it started raining yesterday or something like that, something super weird, and then they know, and then they are like, okay, we know.
I think I have a couple of little things I've done before to kind of like, whistle to the audience. So the guys that really know me and watch a lot of streams and stuff, they know when I'm like hinting at something's happening or I've played something. So I think, if you put two and two together, you can figure it out. It's what's funny about the NDAs. Yeah, but we should be
careful still with this. Like, what if someone at Ubisoft is that knows, right? I mean, we like, yeah, it's not worth it to
absolutely
be kind of cagey or like kind of, yeah.
Well, to be clear, like, I've never broken any NDAs or anything, but it's one of those things where if somebody says like, hey, like somebody asked, like whatever it was, I think they asked, hey Luke, are you reviewing like Alan Wake 2 or whatever it was? And at the time the answer was yes, I am reviewing it, but we couldn't disclose that yet. So I was like, well, no comment. Because I'm not going to say no and just lie to you, because the NDA doesn't say you have to lie to everybody. It just says you cannot disclose this. So I'm not going to lie to my audience about that, but I'm not going to say yes, I am when I'm not allowed to, which is why it's always funny. Like when a politician or business person is like, no comment. It's like, okay, so that's a yes, because that's just how it typically works. But all of that to say, previews will be coming soon, I'm sure, across many channels, maybe ours. We'll find out together.
Yeah. But curious to hear what people think. And like the open world was always something that I wanted to hear or see more about, because it has been very interesting how this is the quote-unquote first open world Star Wars game, or basically it's like a AAA open world Star Wars game, something we've wanted, especially because the Jedi games have been like pretty linear, and of course we got a lot of competitive shooters. So it was weird that they did not really show that properly yet, or that we got our hands on it. So it's cool to hear that they're finally doing that, and that we should have more info on that soon. And that's of course the first, or like, yeah, the week after Black Myth Wukong, like that's kind of starting the second half of the year kind of craziness. Which is going to be interesting. So we will be following that. Then we got Assassin's Creed Shadows, of course, in November. They're saying it's the most ambitious Assassin's Creed ever. Did you expect that?
I mean, I'd hope it would be. You know?
We're making a very uninspired.
Yeah, it's what's always. It's like when Apple comes up on stage and like, and it's the most amazing iPhone we've ever released, and you're like, it better be, dude. Like, imagine like this Assassin's Creed game. It's okay. You know, like of course they're not.
Yeah, you don't have to bother. Like we tried, but we're not really feeling it. I mean, last year they of course had Mirage, and they did not say that about Mirage.
It's true.
That's why I think it's like for some people they maybe needed to hear this. But yeah, like Valhalla was huge as well, and they're of course putting a lot of stuff into this. Also here for this game, they think strong impact post-launch. We know it's gonna have a big post-launch. So not a lot of news there. And they also, by the way, think that this is going to be Assassin's Creed Shadows, one of the top sellers for the company of all time. So they really have strong feelings about this. So, yeah, they have like an interesting quote about the remasters, how they like are really nice to work on because they have a significant level of reuse. So strong economics is what they said. They're, of course, making the Splinter Cell remake, or like remaster remakes, the Sense of Time remake, and we know there are at least 2 Assassin's Creed remakes coming as well. But they have not communicated a business model yet. Someone was like, are you going to give that away for free, like Cyberpunk's update? And I was like, that's not a remake. Or I don't know what those investors are smoking sometimes, but hey. Then, yeah, someone asked about like Ubisoft Plus, is it coming to PlayStation? And they said it's meant to be cross-platform, kind of hinting that they want it to be there, but they don't have an update on that yet. So I think maybe Sony is holding them back or whatever. But I do expect that to come to PlayStation at some point, because next to PC, it's also on Xbox already. Then the 2 interesting things from the Ubisoft CEO. One was about Call of Duty coming to Game Pass, of course, Black Ops 6 in October when it comes out. And they were like, aren't you afraid that with that game coming to Game Pass, so being available for way more people, that it's going to hurt X Defiant, which of course a free-to-play game? And like, what do you think the impact will actually be on the Ubisoft slate? Like, because maybe more people will go to Black Ops now, it might hurt your games. But what the Ubisoft CEO actually said, and of course he has to spin it in a positive way for the investors, but he said that, sure, more people will play Black Ops 6, but they will overall likely spend less money that they, like maybe they would first buy the crazy edition to get the game early or whatever. But now they will maybe in 1 month only spend $20 to get it on Game Pass and then leave after 1 month and then be like, hey, I still got some gaming budget left. I'm going to spend that on games that I cannot get through a subscription, like an Assassin's Creed Shadows or Outlaws. And I thought that was a pretty interesting way to look at it as well, where, yeah, people that would normally maybe spend their holiday budget on Call of Duty, $80 or whatever edition they're going to get, now maybe are only spending $20, so have some money left over. What do you think?
It is an interesting spin on it. I to my knowledge, I haven't heard anybody else say something like that. Typically, when people bring up Game Pass, giving games for no added charge, it's not free, it's just no added cost. Normally people are like, see, so people are used to getting games for free, and then they get accustomed to that and blah, blah, blah. But Eve suggesting that actually that frees up budget to spend money elsewhere is an interesting spin. I think that that's partly how Microsoft can get people to like pay for early access with like a $35 upgrade like they did with Starfield. It's how they can push for like season passes or microtransactions. But I think it'll be really interesting to see how that translates with Black Ops, because it might be that the money is just then spent, like say somebody expected to spend $70 on Call of Duty, they don't. Now do they go and spend that on Star Wars Outlaws, or are they just going to spend it on $70 worth of microtransactions in Black Ops? And then like, see, so I basically spent the same amount of money on the game I would have otherwise. I don't know. But it is an interesting idea. And yeah. I think it'd be better for the gaming industry if Game Pass did free up revenue or money spend that people could spend elsewhere. Because then at least, you know, some of the love's being spread, and other games that are not going, you know, day one Game Pass could stand a chance. But I'm not so sure if I buy that.
Yeah. No, again, like the Ubisoft CEO, of course, has to reassure the investors, hey, we're not in trouble because of this. But I do think it's interesting. Like, if you have $100 to spend on games this holiday, and you would first get Call of Duty and then only have like $20 left or whatever, and now suddenly you can get Call of Duty. Maybe you're only into the zombies or the campaign that you usually play for 1 month. Now you're like, okay, I'm spending $20 on that, and I can get another game. So I'm interested to see, like, the whole industry is looking at this and seeing what the impact will be, because I also looked at Modern Warfare 3. It's still the number 2 best-selling game of 2024. Like, that's crazy. And it was number 3, I think, in May of all the games. And now it's on Game Pass, like today, at the time of this recording. So will that impact the MPD, like the US sales or like the sales in Europe next month? We're gonna see. Of course, PlayStation is still a huge, like they buy more games than on Xbox. There are, of course, more PlayStation players as well. So will we see a shift or not? It's gonna be fascinating to see. And then the other, I thought, interesting thing was that what did they think about Grand Theft Auto next year? Of course, GTA 6 coming. Are they afraid about that? And they're actually like, no, we actually think that GTA releasing is a good thing because new people come to play. That's actually what the CEO said, basically implying that whenever a new GTA launches, and they were looking at the 2013 when GTA 5 came out, that it actually is such a big game that people that normally don't turn a blind eye towards gaming still come to check this out and are maybe buying a console or booting up their console again if they haven't touched it in years, and then play, of course, GTA for a long time. But after that, they're like, that was great. What else is out there? And that it actually lifts all the other games up as well, because there's simply more people playing thanks to GTA. And they say we saw that with GTA 5, like they of course launched Black Flag in that year. Sure, that was like, I think 2 months or a month and a half after GTA 5 came out. That game set records for the franchise when that came out. Of course, you could argue like Black Flag, a lot of people wanted that, a great game, but still, that it did not hurt them at all. And they even said when the next-gen version for GTA 5 came out, we also saw increased sales to our games. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was also a pretty interesting way to look at a GTA 6, where you could also be like, everyone has to get out of the way, this is going to eat everyone's gaming time. Sure, maybe when it comes out and a few weeks before, and especially after launch. But at one point, people might look elsewhere, and especially people that normally were not playing games. So
yeah, I mean, it is a really interesting and I think fair point to bring up, which is just that like Rockstar games are special. It's hard for people to sometimes accept, but they just are special, and people are willing to spend more money on them, which is why I think we're going to see some price hikes when it comes to the launch, with like, you know, $120 version with 5-day early access, and everybody buys that version. I think they're going to do stuff like that, but I think Rockstar games are just, they bridge a divide with the gaming like nerd culture and the broader pop culture. And you see that with like Red Dead 2 when it launched. There were references to it in TV shows that don't normally talk a lot about video games. Like South Park had whole episodes devoted to it, which were hilarious. And I just think that they're special and they bring people into the fold. I've told the story not a bunch, but I've told the story before on stream how I know a guy who works as like he works with the police department. He's like an investigator, and he's one of the most like hardcore, dry, serious people when you meet him, and he's like very intimidating. But if he gets a beer or two in him, he will start talking your ear off about Farm Simulator and Red Dead Redemption 2, and like he eats it up. And he got really into gaming after Red Dead 2 came out, and it like seemed interesting to him, and he got it and he fell in love with it. So I do think there's a lot of people like that who are like nerds at heart, but just don't generally have a reason to get into it until something huge like Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead comes out. And so I fully expect that, yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that jump into it. I think a lot of people are going to make investments in their gaming setups for it. So PS5 Pro, people are going to be buying that. If there's a new Xbox console in time for it, they're going to be jumping on that. People are going to be buying new monitors, new graphics cards. Like, it's just going to be one of those phenomenal, in the pure sense of the word, events. And so I think Eve is probably right that it ends up driving most gaming revenue up, not just Take-Two's revenue up.
Yeah. I thought it was like an interesting way to look at it. And I mean, that's going to be good because there are going to be a lot of games in 2025. And like they basically said, and of course they're going to say that like, if we just come with good quality games, they will still sell even with a GTA 6. Like, again, it's not smart to launch after a few weeks after GTA 6. I think 4 weeks is probably like a nice sweet spot. And they, of course, are expected to launch a new Far Cry, Ghost Recon, and an Assassin's Creed multiplayer game codenamed Invictus in the next financial year. So from April 2025 till March 2026. So we will see what they bring out close to GTA 6. But yeah, those were kind of the highlights from the investor call. The mobile games are delayed again. That's another bit of news. But like the Rainbow Six and the Division mobile game, they just keep going with those. But
and Jade?
No. Yeah, that's from Tencent. Like that, they got a ton of money, like 100 million, I think. So, like huge, like a lot of money to license that game out to them. But we heard earlier this year where Tencent is like, we're gonna invest in our own games that we own because every microtransaction we sell, we have to give X amount to Ubisoft. So it's way smarter to build games in house. But it's kind of weird that they are thinking about that when Jade was like close to being finished. Like people played it. It was like a very functional, content heavy game already. And it felt like it was going to launch this year. But they're going to do like an event again, like Level Infinite, which their Western sort of publishing arm. Maybe we hear about it then. Last year at Gamescom, it had a big presence. But after that, it kind of went dark. Which is crazy because, again, it felt like it was close to being done. So
that's why, like,
we will see.
It sounds insane to say that for Tencent, $100 million. It's like, oops. Oh well, like.
No, yeah, but that's like a licensing fees to Ubisoft because Ubisoft had a really bad year last year, or maybe it was the year before. Actually, it was 2022. They had like only Far Cry. Did they have? Well, no, Far Cry was 2021. I don't think they had like
anything.
No. So they basically made a lot of money from the licensing deals. That's how they were saying it in the financial calls, which turned out to be Assassin's Creed Jade. And they were really like ranking in, I think, $100 million, maybe even more, to just say, hey, you can make an Assassin's Creed game. And of course, we will share, because the game has a lot of Odyssey assets. We will share the assets, probably have some people like help you out, etc. But yeah, we might never see that game. Like that's really an actual sort of thing that can happen, which is kind of sad. I hope that Ubisoft buys it from them or something. But
yeah, because I mean, we saw gameplay footage. We saw people that were playing.
I played it.
You played it.
I played it. Yeah, yeah.
It was very far along, and it looked pretty solid. And to see them just like put it on the back burner and be like, yeah, we'll get around to it eventually. It's just crazy.
We're gonna work on our Fall Guys clone.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Probably makes $100 million a week.
Yeah, it's yeah. It probably makes more money, but okay. And yeah, I think it's a nice segue to talk about the Assassin's Creed apology,
Dun, dun, dun.
red images, white text. The Assassin's Creed Shadows team has a message for our Japanese community. 23 million views on X right now on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So how should we start with this? Kind of give some context. Do you want to do that? Should I do that?
I mean, I'm interested to hear your description of the context, because I described it on stream earlier for some people, but I want to hear your take on the context around this, just in case anybody's been living under a rock and isn't familiar with it.
Yeah, so this actually happened, I think, not like a few weeks ago or like last week. And with the sort of thing with Assassin's Creed Shadows, there's been a lot of like fake news about it as well. And at one point I was like, it's really hard to see what is actually real and what is just pure hate regarding Yasuke, of course, being in the game, and what is actually something that Ubisoft should apologize for, what they actually did. So what I have seen, what seems to be the case, is that in one of the, or I think there are two actually concept arts, they used a flag from a historical. Wait, I'm gonna properly say that. It's like a from an historical reenactment group. So they're still active, and they have made this flag, and it somehow turned out like it somehow made its way into this artwork for Assassin's Creed Shadows. While I don't think that flag was actually real during that time, and they could have easily used real flags from clans that are not active anymore. So that was like a huge blunder, because they also did not reach out to this historical reenactment group to ask, hey, can we use your flag in our promotional material? So yeah, that's I think the main reason why they're coming out to apologize, because obviously the Japanese community was like, what the heck, how can this happen? You say you have like historians working on this game, researchers, how did no one see this? How can this end up in the game? They sadly say that they will not use the image anymore, but the collector's edition book the art book has already been printed. So yeah, it will still be in that art book. So yeah, then they kind of took it to Twitter to basically, like with 4 images, kind of address the situation. One image is basically like, hey, we're super excited to work on a Japanese setting for Assassin's Creed. We've, of course, have worked on many settings in the past. Then they go over in the second image about how they're obviously like, our intention has never been to present any of our Assassin's Creed games, including Assassin's Creed Shadows, as factual representations of history or historical characters. They felt the need to say that, but even though, of course, every time you boot up an Assassin's Creed game, it says, inspired by historical events and characters, this work of fiction was designed, developed, and produced by a multicultural team of various beliefs, sexual orientations, and gender identities. So they've all, like, we already knew this, that they're not, I mean, we've done crazy stuff in these Assassin's Creed games. They've altered history for their story, for their games. This is not new. They still felt the need to say this. And they, of course, also are once again saying, we're collaborating with external consultants, historians, researchers, and internal teams at Ubisoft Japan to inform on our creative choices. But then they say, yeah, we acknowledge that some elements in our promotional materials have caused concern within the Japanese community, and for this we sincerely apologize. So they don't call out the flag issue, but that's what they seem to be referring, at least from my understanding. So, and then they have a 4th image, but so far, is this kind of what you have been thinking as well?
Yeah, I think there's also some other stuff with the promotional materials that was brought up by some people in chat earlier. One thing that people thought was sort of distasteful and a little just weird was like the hip-hop inspired music for Yasuke during combat and stuff. And people just were like, why did you do that? Like, we know why you did that, but why did you do that? And so there's just been a handful of things like that which have just been off. And I think it's interesting that they come out and they say very, very clearly, our intention has never been to present any of our Assassin's Creed games as historically accurate, because they do have that splash screen at the start of every other Assassin's Creed game. But at least like when I saw the game in Los Angeles, the first thing they said about Yasuke was, this is the first time we've had a historical character as a playable character. So a historical person as a playable character. So from the very outset, they were trying to frame Yasuke as, this is a historically legitimate character. We took his story and put it into the game and stuff. And it's only been over the course of the last like month or so, as people who I think largely are outside of the Assassin's Creed community and fan base, they've taken to the internet and looked at who worked on the game, the historians that they reference for Yasuke being a samurai and stuff, and have found that a lot of the historians that were referenced saying that Yasuke was a samurai have been discredited or have been caught doing really strange things that have put them under investigation by their own universities that they work at. And I think that it just comes off as Ubisoft's prime directive with selecting Yasuke as a playable character was not to like represent Japanese history to a new audience. It was to try and increase the diversity of the main cast of characters, which right now, especially in the US, is sort of a hot button issue. It's been brought up constantly with other games, and
I don't believe that that's the case. And maybe I've maybe I just don't want that to be real. But I personally don't think that that's why they did it. And I also looked around. Like, you have another historian, Hirayama on Twitter, who has like almost 40,000 followers. He also took it to Twitter and say, like, I've seen a lot of talk about Yasuke recently, and while we don't have a lot of historical records on him, it is a fact that he was a samurai, because like Yasuke had was able to carry a sword, he had a house, he served Oda Nobunaga, and during that time it was not that big of a deal to turn into a samurai like it became later on. So I think and there have been like a lot of other media where Yasuke is a samurai. Like, I really don't. Why are people? I don't think the reason why people are mad at this is because he is a samurai, or like, is he a samurai or not? It's like they don't like the route that Ubisoft has taken for this, and that's why I kind of take issue with the explanation that Ubisoft gives, because in their fourth and final image, they go and say, while Yasuke is depicted as a samurai in Assassin's Creed Shadows, we acknowledge that this is a matter of debate and discussion. We have woven this carefully into our narrative and with our lead character, the Japanese shinobi Naue, who is equally important in the game. Our dual protagonists provide players with different gameplay styles. I think that's kind of weak. Like, they're basically saying, yeah, we made this decision and we get it that you don't like it, but we still made it. And no, you should be like, this is our creative vision. We already said it's not historical accurate. We thought this was an awesome character, and I do think, and I said it before, like the Shogun TV show showed that really well as well. Sure, you already have this native Japanese character in the game. I thought in the Shogun TV show as well was like, I loved the way that the captain was like looking at the Japanese culture, and through that lens it really showed how different that is from what we're used to in the West. And I think that could be a very cool way to show the Assassin's Creed, or like to show the setting in this world as well. Like, having two similar Japanese characters. Sure, they could have done that. I mean, that would have been the easy route. Like, people also seem to forget, Ubisoft could have gone the easy route. They always went the easy route, and they've gotten like crap for that. They always went with the male character. Even with Syndicate, they had a female character Jacob was on the cover and he had the most missions, etc., etc. They got a lot of criticism for that. Then they go the different route, and again, I don't think that is because, maybe I'm wrong. I want to believe that they really thought that this would have been an interesting choice, and I agree. I think it's an interesting choice. Again, they could have gone the easy route. They went an interesting route, I would argue. We still have not played the game. We should see how it plays out, right? So I just personally think that the whole statement about them saying, yeah, we are not, like, I get where you're coming from with Yasuke. No, the people I think that are hating on Yasuke are just pure hating on it for the wrong reasons. And I said it on Twitter as well. I really believe that the people that care about the series never had an issue with Yasuke as a character in this game. Like, I saw that in my community. No one was like, oh my god, Yasuke, what the heck is going on here, Ubisoft? They were like, okay, sure, if you want to tell this story, I'm along for the ride. Let's hope they deliver on it. And again, I stand by it. I think it's an interesting way to go about it if they do it right, of course. And we don't know because we still have not played the game. So I talked a lot. But yeah, that's kind of my
turn. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to just be at the outset and say a couple of things just to clarify, I think, foundational parts of this. Number one, does Yasuke being in the game mean the game will therefore be bad? No, absolutely not. The game could still be badass and have a black samurai character. I don't think that's a big deal. Most people will say, most people have said, like, no, it's not that he's black. Of course, it's that it implies activist involvement in the development process. And when activists are involved in the production of a game, it leads to the game being worse. And that's when they'll point to other games that have had like SBI involvement or other such consultancy groups that are pushing for certain things, like notably in like Alan Wake 2, when they changed Saga from a white woman, as they showed in some promotional materials, and then recast her as a black woman. Does that mean the game's bad? Obviously not. Alan Wake 2 is badass and awesome. But people will point to that as like activist involvement can affect the quality of games in some instances. And the reason why I don't like activist involvement usually in games, sometimes it's fine, obviously, like with Alan Wake 2, it didn't really affect the game. But it's because it can affect the game. And so my problem is when the game is bad, full stop, whether it's because activists were involved or the game designers made bad decisions, it's just when the game is affected negatively by that decision. And as of right now, I haven't seen any evidence that whether it was activists or historians that were mistaken or had unpopular opinions or whatever, whether that affects the quality of the game, I haven't seen any evidence that it will. We honestly haven't seen much evidence about the game full stop because we haven't seen much about the game. We saw like a mission and then a brief description of each protagonist, and that's kind of it. So there's not much to go on. But I think generally what people are mostly frustrated by with it is just that it fits the narrative in the gaming community, especially in the United States right now, because we're in an election year. A lot of social and cultural issues are heightened in their severity. And right now, the hot button issue is activist involvement in video game and art production. We look at like Star Wars, The Acolyte. We look at other, TV shows and movies and video games that have been produced seemingly without the primary focus being on quality, but rather on other concerns. And it leads to projects that aren't as high quality as you would have hoped or expected them to be. And I think that that's what people get mostly frustrated by. And the case of Yasuke with Assassin's Creed Shadows just comes off as fitting that narrative way too well to be a coincidence, and so it's brought up. And there's an old saying in politics here in the US, goes back to a political strategist in the 1980s, and he just said that perception is reality. So if the perception is that Yasuke was put in the game because they wanted to like be more appealing to a more diverse group of customers, if that's the perception, that's effectively what Ubisoft has to deal with. And that's why this letter exists. Because I think in Japan and a lot of other markets, they're probably seeing like pre-orders affected by this controversy, and I'm sure other macroeconomic factors. But I think that that's why like Yves Guillemot didn't want to mention specifics about pre-order numbers. If the pre-orders were really good, he'd probably tell everybody. But instead, he's like, we think that the interest in the game is very high, and we're very proud of the game we've put together. And it just doesn't really give you much to go on. But I think it's the only reason you get something like this is because they're seeing something they feel they need to respond to. And another old political saying is, if you're explaining, you're losing. And I don't think they post something like this unless they're feeling some level of heat by this. I don't think it's like that scandalous. Like we've said, in the last Assassin's Creed game by this team, you fought Minotaurs and a Cyclops, and like you could put fire effects on weapons. Nobody, like you could jump from any height after level 25 and there was no fall damage. Nobody who's played Assassin's Creed games expected historical accuracy. But I think the people that are mostly getting riled up about this are more in the casual group that occasionally play Assassin's Creed games. And like I said, this just fits that narrative too well, which is why it's kind of become such a hot button issue on social media. And so I don't think it's that big of a deal, and I don't think it'll really affect the game's quality at the end of the day. But I think that it's more of a cultural issue, seemingly in Japan and also in the US. And that's what Ubisoft's fighting against right now, is just that. And whether or not it actually affects final game sales, I don't know. Because I do think core Assassin's Creed fans will still buy it and still jump on it. But I do think it'll affect like other coverage. I think a lot of YouTubers will probably put off making videos on the game because they just don't want to deal with the cesspool that will be the comment section. So I think it will have an impact long term. And I think that's what they're dealing with.
Yeah, there are some people, like a lot of stuff happened in the chat while you were talking. But all good, all good. Like some people are saying that the historian I quoted has been, I wanna if anyone has a source, then I will totally rectify that. Like that's, of course, I don't want to spread false information, but that's what I kind of led with. Like it has been kind of hard because I also on Twitter people were saying, yeah, the Japanese government is getting involved and that's why they are addressing Yasuke. I'm like, that's not true. Like, and then there was like another post where it was like the Japanese government is like, why should we put resources towards a game, right? So
there was one instance where there was a historian that was caught like editing the Wikipedia articles about Yasuke specifically to try and make it out that it was much more it was much more absolute that he was a samurai, and he was doing that because he sold a book that he wrote that pushed that, which ended up like leading to him allegedly getting investigated by the university he taught at. But like the point is, at the end of the day, it's a contested thing. Some people say it's fair to call him a samurai or infer that for the sake of a video game narrative. Other people say, no, it's super locked in and loaded. He totally was a samurai. But I think most gamers that are looking at this game are like, it's an Assassin's Creed game. Like, who cares? If he was named Bibbleboop and he was not an actual historical character and they were like, yeah, he's a samurai, go for it. Like, would people be this upset? I don't know. But I think there's people that are very frustrated both ways. But on the flip side, there was one guy that like Grums was quoting repeatedly, and a bunch of other people were quoting, that was saying that he was blocked by Ubisoft for speaking the truth about this game. And it turned out that he was pretending to be a historian as part of like a social experiment. And it was all just fake and made up. And so the whole discussion is just a train wreck, and it's just one big headache across the board. And I think that, we're probably also seeing it this way with even like chat to a certain extent. Whenever we discuss this, it just ends up being a headache that's more trouble than it's worth. So what's going to happen is people will just not bother talking about it. And that perhaps is more what worries Ubisoft, is that the dynamic and organic discussions are going to start to dry up because people just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you fix that. I don't know how you fix that.
No, I don't think you should just focus on like showcasing cool parts about the game, I guess, and then the people that will care. Because I think it's wild if you are not gonna play this game because Yasuke is featured in it. I'm sorry. I think that's wild. So I mean, do you, of course, but yeah, like it's an interesting conversation for sure, and yeah, I personally hope that we can just agree to disagree with the people that are like, I don't want this in my game. I don't buy it. Then Ubisoft will learn their lesson. But I think you could also look at it from the other angle where it's like they have constantly been criticized for not like, I don't know, like not being very. I should probably not say that. Like, I don't want to like talk more about this. Actually, like you said, you can't go right.
The conversations go nowhere. Like, that's my biggest frustration. Is like I agree with you. I think to a certain extent, maybe the reaction, kind of like what Warner Brothers did with the Hogwarts Legacy stuff, because that was also scandalous with J.K. Rowling and everything, and eventually their executive just said, yeah, we think all of that's just a very online issue. And he basically dared all those people. He was like, yeah, then don't buy the game. And it sold 23 million copies. So maybe what Ubisoft just has to do is like, yeah, if you don't like it, that sucks, don't buy it. And then everybody just moves on. And honestly, based on what I've seen, most of the people that are the most upset about it, that again, it's just anecdotal, it's based on my experience seeing like the YouTube videos that pop up in my feed talking about it. They're not like people who cover Assassin's Creed games or play Assassin's Creed games. It's people who like talk about broader drama, or people that are like reaction streamers or this or that. I don't think that those people were necessarily the target audience.
100%.
So I don't know if it actually has that big of an impact on sales, and that's what's going to be interesting, is just to see if it actually moves the needle at all. But the fact that they made this post makes me think that they're actually worried about that, which maybe it is a broader issue that's affecting it more. But yeah, it's just a conversation that doesn't go anywhere. Everybody's like, yep, some people are upset about this. Other people don't think it's a big deal.
But I just like, they knew that like picking this character would be a choice that would cause some pushback maybe, and that's why I think the post has been like kind of like, okay, why don't you just own it? Like there have been like a Netflix show about Yasuke as well. Like why would you suddenly go be defensive about it? Because then it's like, okay, if you're not fully into this, why go this route to begin with, right? So yeah, it's we will see how it continues, but I think like what you said is probably true. Maybe for them it's nice to have this conversation right now, and then like people have like a short memory span. Maybe as we continue, the focus will be on the actual game, but we will see.
Yeah. One other thing, kind of in the same vein of AC Shadows, just to shift it a little bit. I saw an interesting take from someone. I don't recall who I saw say it. I think it was on X. Somebody just brought it up. But basically they were asking, is it just at the end of the day, is it at its core just too late for an Assassin's Creed game set in Japan? Because we already have gotten like Ghost of Tsushima, for example, which many people jokingly called it like, we finally got Assassin's Creed in Japan in the form of Ghost of Tsushima. Do you think that they can really differentiate it enough, or do you think it's just going to constantly be compared to like Ghost of Tsushima? Do you think they can stand on their own here?
I mean, that's what they're doing, right? Two playable characters. I think because Yasuke is like someone coming into Japan without like any knowledge about it, I do think seeing the story from his perspective is going to be already very different from Jin, who was like growing up and became this samurai and is turning into this assassin. No, we have a shinobi who actually grew up to be a shinobi. So I already think that approach will already make this game quite different. Also, like from a gameplay perspective, the 2 playable characters. I'm still not sold on Yasuke's playstyle. Like, will it be fun to not have a lot of options when approaching a camp or whatever? While Naoe seems to be way more versatile, so still questions about that. I mean, it's in mainland Japan, it's not on Tsushima Island, so that's already, I think, gonna be interesting. And personally, I think that there have been a lot of games in similar settings, but I still think seeing Assassin's Creed take on it, we know this game will have a ton of post-launch as well, which is already gonna set it apart. No, I don't really worry about that, actually. And I mean, we talked about maybe the sales are not as, or the pre-orders are not as good as they are hoping. They're still really good. Like, we did hear from Tom Henderson, who has insider sources in Ubisoft, that after the reveal, they've been very happy with what they've seen. And again, they expect this game to be one of the best-selling games that they had. And Valhalla, I saw someone in the chat ask that as well. That game was like, that made $1 billion, like Valhalla alone. It was like the top revenue grosser for Ubisoft from an Assassin's Creed game. And I do think this being the first quote-unquote next-gen only game, there's not a lot of competition this year. I do think it's probably going to be fine. And like, would Ubisoft then skip this setting because they're quote-unquote too late? I don't know. I don't think that's like a right way to look at it as well. So,
I think it's also easy to bring up something like that now, when we still have not really seen much of anything about the game. Like, I think what we've seen is like raiding a castle in 2 different play styles, and that's about it. We know there's other stuff. We know that the game is huge. We know that they have like this season system, and I really think the season system is going to be very unique. Like, that's something that no other game has, and it could really differentiate it. It's just right now, based on what we've seen, which is a small sliver that happens to be similar to other games we've already seen. It doesn't mean that the full package will be kind of so milquetoast. So I fully expect them, after Star Wars gets out in September, October, they start to really push it. And we'll see how they approach the marketing cycle. You know, as you alluded to earlier, Star Wars Outlaws is going to be their biggest marketing campaign ever, which makes sense. I mean, it's a Star Wars game, so, and they're pretty confident about it. So I think we'll see that, you know, start to happen probably in that September, October time frame. But it's going to be an interesting one. It's one that I'm very intrigued by because I just want to see how this is going to play out. And it's one of the only like huge games, like big games that's coming through the end of the year. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think it will. I think it will do really well. We also have Judson with a super chat. Thanks for that. Why do you think AC will never make a full game based in China? Because they make main character Chinese and not something else. Like that's all the comments that you're getting right now. Like, people are just spinning now their stories. I also saw a comment. Oh, maybe Sucker Punch is paying propaganda against SS. Like, let's not go that route. But like, Judson is saying that's not a phone game. Like, I think because we have the phone game, unless that gets canceled, like they wanted, of course, like phones are way more popular in China to play games on than here in the West. So it makes sense to, if you go make a game set in China, to make it on phones if you were looking to make an Assassin's Creed game for the phones. And yeah, then also having a like real console Chinese, like a game in a Chinese setting, I like never say never, especially with Assassin's Creed Infinity, like the Animus Hub. They could like make a small DLC or whatever, like a standalone experience in China, which would be cool. But because of the existence of the mobile game and because the setting makes the most sense for the mobile game, I don't see them. Yeah, like there are so many things they can still go to, like so many cool settings that I personally would also prefer them to, save the setting in China for much later when the mobile game has been forgotten, maybe. Like you can make a main character, you can actually create your own character in Assassin's Creed Jade, and that is indeed a Chinese person.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Mia for the $5 super chat right as we were getting going. Teaching on Zoom has given me a new appreciation for y'all's multitasking skills. Any hot tips for how you're able to keep talking while reading chat? Honestly, I think it's just practice. I remember when I started like trying to stream and chat started getting busier and busier. It was very, very difficult. And now it's just something that we've just, I guess, gotten better at, but even then I'm not that great at reading chat. So
I mean, like, of course, when you're streaming, the first thing you should do is make sure there are no moments of silence, like you're constantly talking. And when you got that under control, it's kind of like you're basically thinking out loud, of course, when gaming, or when you constantly want to make sure that there's like that you're engaging the audience. And then at one point when you got that under control, you can like use the chat as well. And then I think it's like you said, keep doing it, and then of course at one point it will get better.
Yeah. And Samaya, thank you for the super chat. I really want to see some black box missions and who the Templars are, like how AC Mirage previewed before the game launch, by showcasing the black box missions in that game. I agree. I mean, I'm all down for black box missions. I don't know to what extent those will be here. I mean, they've shown the castles, and they've said that there's a lot of castles with assassination targets inside, different routes to take. And also they're different depending on which player character you choose. So there'll be some stuff like that, but I do think that they could showcase a lot more of that. The other big thing that's going to be important to showcase for Shadows is going to be the open world. And I think we probably start to see trailers focused on the open world, trailers focused on the combat, the settlements. They'll do probably a few on the seasons exclusively, like, again,
because they've now been talking, but we haven't, like, we only know this, like, we've been saying the same examples over and over. I want to see that in action, and if it actually matters as much as they're alluding to.
Yeah. Same with other games like Star Wars Outlaws. A lot of people are interested in like the factions system there, and the open world design stuff. It's just July is always weird because it's empty, and a lot of companies are revving up for their marketing cycles where they'll start to show you a lot of stuff about the games. And so it's easy to just like spin and spin and spin and speculate and be like, why haven't they shown this? Why haven't they shown that? When it's like, it's coming. It's just going to take a little bit of time because they don't want to do it in July, which makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like the black box missions, I just haven't played a good black box mission in these newer games. So like they are just using this as like a thing that we know we loved from Unity and Syndicate, and it's just not the same anymore. I just don't think maybe the people that made those missions are still at Ubisoft. Like that's kind of what it feels like. And they're just like, with the Siege of Paris DLC, they were like, let's bring a cool feature back. Yeah, we do the Black Ops missions without like any cool implementation, and Mirage was the same. Like they really, there are multiple ways. And even at the preview event, I asked everyone, how did you do this mission? They all did the same thing. So I'm just not convinced that even if they say they have black box missions in Shadows, that it will be any good. And especially how is it gonna work with Yasuke? Oh, maybe you should like check on boom, blood, shoulder bash to the door. Hey, I'm here. Like, I just don't think like, will it then only work with Naue? So I think they're gonna focus more on in the settle or in the outpost have actually like, instead of like talking to people, getting information that way, you will actually in the outpost have like multiple paths you can choose, and hopefully have some different gameplay experiences or whatever elements when you choose one path over the other. I hope that that's the case. And then with the seasons, like if I play the mission in the winter, I will not use the roofs because the ice will fall down, people will hear me, while you play that mission in the summer, so you're going through the rooftops, and that will like make the mission slightly different. I think that's probably what we should think of, but I don't think the black box mission are back. Like Yasuke cannot even like wear a hood. So it would be weird for him to sneak into
Which,
something.
to a certain extent, I do appreciate, because they've also established that he's like particularly tall and very muscular, and he's like a very big dude. So for him to be able to just like, imagine if there's like little hatches you can crawl under, and he's just able to like crawl into the same one as Naue. Like, it would be so contrived and stupid. But they've actually made it so no, they can't do the same thing, because they're not the same person, and they have different skill sets. And so again, we don't know what we don't know, and we're gonna find out more in the coming weeks and months.
It's for sure. Probably at Gamescom. That's a quick extra small thing I wanted to shout out. It's gonna be the biggest show ever. Are you excited? They will have more exhibitors than ever this year. Xbox will have the biggest booth ever, but that's probably because they have Activision, of course, for the first time. So yeah, I thought it was like interesting to note. Like, that's the next bullet point on the list, or like thing on the list, the Jeff Keighley Gamescom opening night live, August 20th, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking of going, but then I was just like, I don't know, it's a big trip to maybe see something kind of cool, but also Summer Game Fest was not like, the actual event of Summer Game Fest wasn't that crazy, because everything was at the Xbox show. The Play Days thing that they did, where you actually got to play the games, was super cool. There were a lot of cool things.
Yeah, you made quite a lot of content about it, I think, and like a nice like differentiation like between what do I put on the live channel and on the main channel. I thought it was really.
You guys got to see me parkour over that chair, so there was that.
I can't get enough of that. That's like my a GIF that I'm like playing over and over again.
It's actually my wallpaper. I installed a wallpaper engine just over and over. So. Oh, that's interesting, Mohammed. Do you think we see like anything about the PS5 Pro at like in the next month or two? Not at Gamescom, because Sony's not going.
Sony's not at Gamescom. But I think, because I did some digging actually, and in 2016 when the PS4 Pro was revealed, they did it in early September, and then a few weeks later, when at Tokyo Game Show, that was the first time they actually brought the hardware to a public show so people could see it and play some games on it. So they did announce that they're back at Tokyo Game Show for the first time in 5 years. So that's, I don't think, a coincidence. And we had a recent report from Tom Henderson, who has been the first to report on the PS5 Slim that of course released last year, and the PS5 Pro as well. And he said that it's still on track. They're kind of just worried that there are no big first-party games that utilize the features at launch. Seems like they're still gonna put it out there, maybe have a deal with Dragon Age or with Assassin's Creed, and then the other games will of course start coming, and hopefully in September we finally get that PlayStation Showcase with Ghost 2, and that they show that running on PS5 Pro and be like 2025, like something like that would be cool. Death Stranding 2, of course, is running on the Decima engine. Oh, that's gonna look insane on PS5 Pro. So I still think they have some cool things to show, but it's mostly just that we need something. Like, give us something as PlayStation fans to chew on, because we have Concord right now. Come on, and Astrobot, which looks cool.
We do have Astrobot. They need something. I mean, I don't think you can sell what probably is going to be like a $600, $700, $800 piece of hardware.
I think 700 minimum.
I haven't seen the stats recently, so I don't remember.
6.9.
Maybe $69.99. Oh, what if they do $69.69? So it's $696 and
that would be good.
96 cents.
That would be really good.
Just like, what's the price? Boop 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 boop. They gotta have something, and maybe they're sitting on it. Maybe they're gonna shadow drop something crazy, but I think it would have leaked, or there would be rumors and rumblings by now, especially if it was like by the end of this year, shadow drop an Atreus DLC. I would think we'd hear about it.
I still think, I mean, the Valhalla DLC was kept very quiet. We only heard that they had like a DLC or something planned for this year, like from a weird Spanish site or whatever. So, like, I don't think it's gonna happen, because I agree. I do think that would have been like an announcement Jeff Grubb has had or something. But it is interesting that Astrobot is not a November game. Like, why put that out and Concord August, September? Like, when they have nothing else. Like, they got Lego Horizon, but they know that that's probably not gonna do gangbusters, and that's also on Switch and PC.
I mean, when was the rumored remaster for Horizon Zero Dawn?
I mean, it has just been rumored that that's coming, but the Netflix show had some issues with the guy from Umbrella Academy, being like outed as like a really bad person, basically.
So kind of hard to recover from that.
And he was supposed to be the showrunner for the Horizon series, so Sony cut cords with it. So we don't have a showrunner for the Aloy show anymore. Sad.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they still do like a I mean, I think you need more than just a remaster to sell it, but I don't know. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think they want to go that route. Like that, the best new thing they have is a remaster of a 7-year-old game that nobody
still
asked
looks
for.
Pretty good, and like
that already looks pretty good. No, that should be like, and we also have this, right? That should not be the thing.
Yeah, I don't know. They got to have something heavy hitting, I think, but maybe they're waiting for it. Maybe they're going to shadow drop it. That would be, talk about a splash, if they have a PS5 Pro and a shadow drop surprise that nobody saw coming, and then like day one support from some of their bigger games where it's like, Last of Us 2 update.
Yeah, again, I don't think that's gonna happen, because like that's kind of the point Tom Henderson made in this article, that Sony is like, we still want to put it out this year. Like, they had the Lost Us multiplayer game probably planned for this year. But yeah, now that of course has been canceled. So like that was really the takeaway from that article. Like, everything is moving well. The developers have to submit their games for certification for this date, and all the games from this date forward, like August 1st, I think, have to be compatible with the PS5 Pro. So like, it's moving forward, but they're internally being like, are we sending it out to die, right? Or because we have nothing to show for it? But we will see. I think in the end, with the GTA 6, if it really is like the better way to play, and you got like a ton of other games, I do think it will be fine over time. And they're always like the sort of hardcore. Like, I do think there's at least 1 million 1 million PlayStation fans that will buy it no matter what, because they know I will get it. Like, I hope that Sony is like, we have to show why people should invest in this $700 machine. And that's why we need to show games that are coming not next year, but also the year after. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they do just come out swinging and show everything, because at least everything for the next 18 months, maybe.
I mean, maybe they feel like Call of Duty coming to Game Pass is being like, hey, let's do something for once.
Or maybe they're like,
on our laurels.
Maybe they're like, oh, you've got Call of Duty. We have Concord. Like, sit down, Activision. There's a new king.
Yeah, what if they delay Concord and that becomes the shadow drop?
Dude, what? You all like hamburgers and robot talking trash cans, right? What's wrong? Man.
We went for a full circle. Yeah,
we did. It's like, it's the same thing with like Suicide Squad or Starfield. Somehow I always end up back at them, talking about them for some stupid
I know.
reason.
Trust me, we've been doing the podcast for more than a year.
Like, for the love of God, Luke.
How excited are you for tomorrow?
I'm actually, I'm cautiously optimistic.
No, why? Oh,
that we'll have high turnout and people will join me to laugh at it. Yeah, no,
okay.
It's at this point, it is like beating a dead horse, because the game is dead and they're just fulfilling their obligations before they walk away. So it is more now just fascinating. And frankly, I don't really know why people find it so interesting to watch and look at, because the game is like the game's
it's
dead.
Rocksteady.
It's
and
done.
It's like a DC, like, it's like, how could this have happened? I think that's mostly what people are like, how could this be screwed up this bad? Like, how did they screw up this bad?
What I compared it to previously is sometimes like people will say it's like a car crash where you just can't look away, even though like you probably don't want to see what you're gonna see. You can't help but look. And it's the same thing with like I've compared it to lolcows, which is like an internet phenomenon where somebody that's like thinks they're an amazing singer. You go and watch their videos of them trying to sing, even though they're really bad singers. It's entertaining because they think they're really good and it's just not. It's like that ironic Schadenfreude kind of thing. And I think with Suicide Squad, it's a similar thing. I think people in a weird way are also sort of celebrating the collapse and the failure of it because it represents what they don't want in the industry. So they're like, yeah, we're celebrating the failure because we don't want single player devs to go make live service soulless crap. So we're celebrating in its failure because we're not going to have to deal with this from other studios we care about. And it does seem to work. Like they are working on, or allegedly they're working on a pitch for a single player game that will return them to their roots. So it seems like, it didn't end up with the total implosion of the studio, but now they're working on the Hogwarts Legacy director's cut and they're working on a pitch for a single player game. And now we just get like every couple months an update that's really hilarious and not very good. So
I could, by the way, see that Hogwarts Legacy director's cut at the end of this year.
I think so too.
Like the holiday game.
Unless
that might be what PlayStation like latches onto.
Yeah, with like a big Christmas celebration where like I think they'll add the
season toggle. That has like cool, I don't know, features on PS5 Pro. I don't know what they could do, but can probably look a bit better. I don't know. I mean, it's gonna be either this holiday or the holiday afterwards, right? I mean, they wanted Hogwarts Legacy first in the holiday of 2021, so or 2022. I mean, it has been delayed many times, but that's I think what we might still see, which could be interesting. So we will of course be following that. I wanna, of course, we end with the reviews, and we had 141 at the start of the show. And now we have 146. So some legends in the chat, you know who you are, 5 people in total, already went to the mobile app or mobile Spotify app, to the Free Roam Gaming Podcast, and gave us those 5 stars. We really appreciate that. So I think it's smart from now on to say it at the start and the end to get to the 5 stars again.
Hell yeah.
That's our mission.
Thank you, everybody. Also, shout out to Heart Ponder for the super chat at the end of the last stream that I forgot to call out before ending it to set up for this one. Appreciate you for that 5. It was a message about romance options, I believe, in AC Shadows. We'll see how that turns out.
I broke the news, by the way. No big deal.
No big deal. Humble brag right there. Yeah. Humble brag.
We can have humble brags. Okay, thanks everyone for watching.
Thank you everybody for joining us. You guys are wonderful. Appreciate the gosh darn heck out of you guys. And I'm sure we'll see you again very soon.
Next week is like the final day of July. Ubisoft said themselves that there will be previews from Star Wars Outlaws at the end of July. So there is a chance that we will have something to say on the game next week. So tune in to find out if that's true. Maybe not.
Little cliffhanger for you guys.
It's raining yesterday. It started raining yesterday.
Much love, everyone. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.